aquarists, we do kind of play God.
Spend the next 20 minutes feeding your brain with Formosa Fauna so you can learn all about the animal kingdom and become smarter than all of your friends. Because what better way to spend your commute or downtime? Every Friday is Formosa Fauna Friday. I'm Tristan Hildebrand, the voice of Formosa Fauna. I love animals, and I love talking about them. If you're even remotely curious about the animal kingdom, you're in the right place. Did you know that about 71% of the Earth's surface is water covered? There are a lot of people in the world, about 7 billion humans, but there are even more fish, about 350 billion. Many of us listening have had fish as pets at some point in our life, and today that's what we're going to talk about, aquatic pets. Here to talk about aquatic pets with us is our very own animal fanatic, Michelle.
Back.
Also RTI reporter, and host, so you probably recognize her voice. If you don't by now, then you need to listen to more Radio Taiwan International. So today's topic is on aquatic pets. What are your qualifications or experiences, Michelle?
Well, I have had a fish tank for as long as I can remember, because my parents had one, right? So you kind of grow up with one, and then as soon as I was old enough to have some money to go buy all the things that I needed, I bought my own aquarium. And from there, I kind of fell down the hobbyist hole. Being good at keeping an aquarium kind of is like a portfolio for applying for a job in the industry of a shop that actually sells aquatics. So that's where I wound up. I was in the aquatics industry / pet industry for a good decade.
Whoa, that's quite a long time. Just for a little bit of basis here, an aquatic animal is any animal, whether vertebrate or invertebrate, that lives in bodies of water for all or most of its lifetime. I've had betta fish growing up, but don't consider myself knowledgeable in the world of aquatic life. Was this pet store you worked at centered around aquatic pets?
The first one was. I did 3 different shops. The first one was a mom and pop little tiny store that was definitely centered around aquatics, and they sold, incidentally, other pet supplies. The second one was a large corporation, which I spent 6 months at and then hated and left. And the third one I stayed at the longest period of time was very much a specialist in aquatics, but as previously mentioned, it was a pet company that catered to pretty much anything you needed.
What drew you to working at a pet store?
I just walked by one on the way from the house, the apartment that I was living in, to the T station, which in Boston is what we call the public train, and to take it into college. And I was at one point, I was like, I need spending money. And I saw a help wanted sign in the window, so I went in and said, I'd like to apply for a job, and that's how that started. They basically start with questions like, have you kept aquariums before? And I was like, sure. I started college with the goal of becoming a veterinarian. I wanted to be a vet because being an animal nut, right? Animal fanatic, you really want to help them, right? And at that time, I also volunteered in a vet clinic to kind of, get my feet wet. Looks great on, more applications to veterinary credits or veterinary school. And I hated how much the pets hated the vet. And further, I really hated how ignorant people were. Because by the time they would bring their pets to see the doctor, it was really apparent how much they had mishandled the situation. And sometimes they would just straight up surrender. But it's mostly the dogs hate the vet, the cats hate the vet. It's like, props to veterinarians who actually do become veterinarians, because you are such an important figure in animal's life, because you can literally save it. But sometimes you are the most hated person. That's why I figured the pet industry is actually it's a better fit for me, because instead of being at the end of a bad path for an animal, you're at the beginning. When the person first adopts a puppy or a kitten or any other pet, in this case aquariums, you are the person to help set them up and therefore provide them with good information.
You did mention, I think previously, that you'd gone out to customers or clients' households or companies to install, I think, large fish tanks. Could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, sometimes they're really big, sometimes they're not so much, but aquarium services is what they're called. Sometimes people want an aquarium, but they themselves find that it's maybe it's too much work for them. Maybe they want a specific style of aquarium that would be difficult to maintain, because there's a huge range in difficulty level. Like, you could do really easy tanks and you could do really, really hard tanks. The really hard ones, obviously, you could absolutely hire a professional to do. And there are, of course, those people who don't want to do any work at all, but they like fish. So then they would just have, a crew come in and maintain things.
Oh, wow. Even maintain things?
Oh, yeah. So if you wanted like a custom installation, we did everything from A to Z. So we would come in and measure the space. We had contractors who would also work on the house if it needed to be modified to hold weight or something like that. Aquariums are unbelievably heavy. There's about 10 pounds per gallon. So a 1,000-gallon aquarium would weigh 10,000 pounds. So yes, we did everything from like contractor work and building the aquarium itself all the way through to if you just needed people to come in and do basic maintenance like water changes.
Well, that's very helpful because a lot of people just don't want to do that.
Nope. And if you didn't even want to feed it, we had like automatic feeders and things that we would install. And then during one of our regular maintenance visits, we'd refill it so that you would really never have to touch this thing.
Do you have fish at home?
Yes, absolutely. It's Taiwan, unfortunately.
That sounds...
No. Let me rephrase this. So it's Taiwan. So unfortunately, Taipei specifically, most of the apartments that we live in are fairly small because it's a crowded city. So I only have space for really one tank, or really that's the limit that my husband gave me. So I have one aquarium. It's roughly 80 gallons. And I had to choose between fresh and salt water, so I chose salt water. So I have a reef aquarium, what we call a coral reef aquarium in the house.
Oh, geez.
At some point, I'll show it to you. You got to come over and take a look.
Oh, yeah. I would love to. You also have a small aquarium on your desk here at RTI.
It's a teeny tiny one. That is just a nano. So I have a betta fish. His name is Benny. There have actually been generations of Bennies. All of my betta fish are always called Benny.
Oh my gosh. How many Bennies have there been little. At RTI?
At RTI, just the one.
Okay. Do you spell them differently?
No, it's just Benny. Since I was little, they're always called Benny the Betta. I'm not creative when it comes to name.
Okay.
But yeah, it's just to have a little desk companion whenever we're here.
I know the first time I came into the office and I saw that, I asked you, what about when you're not in the office? I was so worried that the fish would starve. Okay,
so the little tiny aquarium, a lot of people do worry about that. The little aquarium that I have on my desk is a self-contained biosphere in a certain way. Do you remember those?
Yeah.
Right? Like the Sharper Image would sell these like enclosed glass globes with like shrimp in them and stuff. And they would survive without any human intervention for years. I used to have one of those as well. They're fascinating. If you balance the amount of nutrient that the animals are requiring to eat and also producing, it feeds the plants and then that feeds the snails, then they eat the snails, you can actually create kind of an ecosystem of sorts. Now, mine is not fully enclosed, but it functions with very, very little human intervention. I just need to feed the aquarium maybe twice a week.
That's very convenient.
Yep. Benny eats the baby shrimp and the tiny snails that just live in there in the meantime.
And then some of those shrimps end up dead on our floor.
I'm so sorry. You guys have to see that. Benny is this particular one. I should say this particular Benny, since they've all been named Benny, is very violent. He's the most violent betta I've had so far. The shrimps are necessary for the ecosystem in order to eat algae and produce young as part of the food cycle. Now, if you don't have shrimp in the aquarium, then the algae grows out of control and it gets, well, of course, ugly. Ready? Here's an actual interesting factoid. Plants, we're always taught, consume carbon dioxide and release oxygen. That's not always true. As part of the respiration process, they sometimes can consume oxygen. So at nighttime when it's dark. So sometimes they can suffocate an aquarium. And an algae can do that if you let it grow out of control. So shrimp are required. The aquarium is not large enough for algae-eating fish. And Benny loves to chase shrimp. And I've tried very hard to kind of maintain low water levels or surface plants, and occasionally one pops out the top of the aquarium.
Yeah, they always end up a ways away from the
Because they can survive for quite a period of time outside of water, as we know, shrimp being shrimp. And I need to put up a rim around the aquarium or netting or something, because Benny, you gotta stop that. It's horrible.
Does he actually eat them or just chase them?
If he does actually manage to kill one, then he'll eat it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's kind of it's a sad little cycle.
I know, right? And that's actually why we were talking earlier about the term aquatic pets. And generally, you don't hear people saying, I keep aquatic pets, because the word pet implies, if we're looking at synonyms for the word pet, it's more like companion animals, like a dog, a cat, a rabbit, a hamster, that kind of thing. But aquarists they fall into kind of an interesting special category where we are not exactly companions to animals. We are deities of an enclosed world. And this is where it's a weird little divide. We do kind of play God to this ecosystem that we created in a glass box in our house. So in that way, there is some amount of controversy to it. Okay. Because in every deity's world, there is a certain acceptable amount of loss.
I do see that now with the shrimps. Do you personally still eat fish and shrimp even though you have them as pets?
I do.
Okay. And again, because they're aquatic
ecosystems
and not pets necessarily.
Yeah, they're not so much pets. I guess a lot of people who do this, who keep aquariums, they have I guess they're compartmentalizing. This is really what it is, right? There's the ones that are in the aquarium, and then there's the ones that I eat. So I am definitely one of those people. I do try to have meat-free days. I have failed miserably at some days. I'm very bad at being vegetarian because I have very low willpower. But yes, sometimes it is a good idea to be very conscious about what you're eating. But I do still eat fish and shrimp sometimes.
Okay. What kind of people do you think make good
aquarists?
Aquarists. That's what you call it. That's a new word to me. What kind of people make good aquarists?
Micromanagers.
Oh.
Yes, this is a thing. Micromanagers, people who are very fidgety, I'd say, because that's what a lot of aquariums require. There are, as I said, very low maintenance aquariums that you can kind of just set and forget for long periods of time. And then there are the ones that require a lot of tweaking, like you have to add this fertilizer or this mineral. The equipment needs this kind of toggling, this however so often, that kind of thing. So people who like to fiddle with, it's kind of like train people, those train set people. What else?
Very
detail oriented, like model makers. Who else might I think is probably a good fit for aquariums? Plant people, but not like I'm just going to have a jungle and not really do anything with it. But plant people who love like trimming and bonsais. Those people, great idea for aquariums.
Because you yourself would probably also identify as a plant person.
Oh, I am. Definitely. Yeah. Crazy plant mom. You should see my little office cubicle. It's covered in plants.
It's the most beautiful office cubicle.
Thank you.
What kind of people should avoid being aquarists?
You do have to have, as you said, a lot of people in this hobby as I have said, a lot of people in this hobby do require a certain amount of compartmentalization, right? Because it is an ecosystem and a certain amount of loss is to be expected. These lives can be extremely small and fragile, so it happens. I think everyone who has had a pet, like a fish, has lost a fish. It is still sad, and we should still have empathy. But people who have absolutely no empathy should avoid doing this, because then you're just a horrible person. These will then lead into those horror stories, as I've mentioned, of people who want to keep aquariums but don't care really about the lives that are in it.
Like there was one time that I shut down an event basically because they were going to give out thousands of fish.
Oh.
Yeah, and
I
went straight to the top and I said, I want to take you down.
No, you talked about that before. Yeah, you talk to them like, why are you doing this? This is terrible.
Yeah.
It's inhumane. It is inhumane. We basically determined that you can special order animals.
Yeah.
One of the phone callers were like, I would like to order 1,000 goldfish.
Yep.
Obviously, it was some college dude.
Uh-huh.
And in Boston, there are a lot of colleges who still practice hazing.
That's so sad.
So we were like, no, thank you, sir. Thank you for thinking of us, but we will not be helping you place this special order.
I just hope that all the other places he contacted also didn't let him place the order.
Yeah, ethical practices are so important. They're just so important everywhere. You are there to try to make life at least somewhat interesting for them or pleasant. It has to be a nice ecosystem for them to exist in. I was talking to a friend about the horrors that happened after the movies Finding Nemo and Finding Dory came out. Because a lot of these people came out the woodwork. Oh, my child wants a clownfish. They want to keep Nemo. They want to keep Dory. But they also don't understand that that is a living life. It's a life. And you do need to design an ecosystem around said life that isn't horrible. Did you know a clownfish lives to be like 20, 25 years old?
Wow.
Hippo tangs, which are dories, or Pacific blue tangs, live to be even longer. There have been 40-year-old individuals recorded in aquariums. So that should drive it home that if you lose a clownfish within a year, you are doing something very wrong, and you should probably either improve or not do that.
Yeah, and that's also very sad.
It is.
It's kind of like how people really discourage you from giving puppies and kittens as Christmas presents,
because
to families.
That's a 15 to 20-year commitment that you're looking at there.
Huge commitment. For children who are starting out and they want to, the parents want to get them pets, right? Do you think betta fish are a good choice?
Not bettas.
Oh.
Because a lot of people think betta and they think like a bowl.
Yeah.
And bowl-fish are actually harder maintenance than an actual aquarium. Now,
really?
I would highly recommend aquariums as a first pet because not only do they teach responsibility as all pets do, but they actually teach like the basics of nature because you have an ecological system in your house. Now, with modern, there's modern tools now, filters, and the lights are, actually heat control and all of that. You can actually have a self-enclosed little environment that the kids can learn from. And hopefully you also have someone at your local fish store, your LFS in the hobby we call it, that will hold that kid's hand along the way, thereby helping them pick the correct species to mix together and the right food and teach them how often they need what sort of care. Now, that is essential, but aquariums can be, as I said, very, very low maintenance and an excellent first pet.
Thank you, fellow pet fanatic, animal fanatic, Michelle.
Thank you for having me.
You'll hear much more of her here on Radio Taiwan International. Have you ever had a memorable experience with an animal? Send me an email at tristan@rti.org.tw. That's tristan@rti.org.tw, so I can share it on air. Making it to the end of an episode makes you a Formosa Fauna friend. Thank you for tuning in, friend. It's not gross, it's cute. All animals require enrichment, and Formosa Fauna is just that. After all, we're all just a bunch of wild animals. See you next time for Formosa Fauna Fridays here on Radio Taiwan International.